Hello everyone, this is part 13 of What If Naruto Was a Demigod in the Justice League, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
The Amazon society did not consist of warriors only. Not all Amazons liked violence and not all of them could fight. A good number of them were farmers and livestock caretakers, some were teachers, others were attendants at the royal palace and so on. For a community to function in peace for over 3,000 years, completely isolated from the outside world, it had to be self-sustaining. My queen, Princess Diana, and the guests have settled in their rooms. One warrior has been assigned to guard each of their rooms. As a precautionary measure, one of Hippolyta's closest attendants said. It is not necessary, Phoebe, Hippolyta said. Diana is my daughter. As for the man she brought with her, I have tested him with the lasso of truth. He bears no ill intent towards us. The woman in question, Phoebe, was very surprised to hear that. During the interrogation, the only people present in the throne room were the queen, the princess, Naruto, Kyuubi, and Artemis, who got knocked out cold before the questioning actually started. That said, the rest of the Amazons did not know what had transpired there. In a way, the embarrassing moment happened, in the family, and would remain, in the family, so to speak. No outsiders were aware of it. What about Artemis? Is she alright? Hippolyta asked. She suffered a minor concussion. Nothing serious. A bit of rest is all she needs for a full recovery. Phoebe said. Hesitatingly, she asked, what happened to her? Did that man? It is a private matter, not something to gossip about, Hippolyta said, and Phoebe obediently lowered her head. Yes, my queen. As absurd as it may sound, the man that came with Diana is a good person. Seeing the skeptical look on her attendant's face, Hippolyta continued. Most men are indeed selfish, violent, cruel, and wicked. That is the truth. However, there are no absolutes in this world. Not all men are evil, though few in number, there are exceptions too. Just like how not all Amazons are good people. Women are capable of terrible things too, are they not? Otherwise, we wouldn't need to have a prison, would we? Not only that Amazon society was self-sustaining, but it also had everything that a properly working community should have. There were a school and a college for education, a coliseum and a racing field for entertainment purposes, a very impressive library for cultural purposes, 2 temples dedicated to the 2 most important patron goddesses of the Amazons, training grounds and barracks, a hospital, the Queen's Palace, a research center dedicated to studying magic and technology, a craftsman's center for economic purposes, and even spots for relaxing such as a swimming pool, a park, and a hot spring. Naturally, there was a prison on Themyscira too. With thousands of women living on the same island, it was natural for some conflicts to arise between some of them once in a while. If someone was too much of a troublemaker, they would be sent to the prison on Reform Island, one of the several smaller islands around Themyscira. Though the Amazons' land was called Paradise Island, it was not just one island, it was an archipelago. This man is one of those few exceptions. He truly cares about my daughter and he is willing to even follow her through the gates of Tartarus. He is ready to trade his life to protect her. I could not hope for a better companion for her. Ask yourself, if one of your Amazon sisters was to be sent by the gods to Tartarus, would you follow her? The attendant looked like she had a lot on her mind after hearing what her queen said. You can retire for the night, Phoebe. Yes. Good night, my queen. Phoebe said. She brought a hand to her chest and bowed before leaving. Phoebe's body was on autopilot as she headed towards the servants' quarter. Like every other Amazon on the island, her instructors had taught her and warned her repeatedly about the wickedness of men and the evils in the man's world. There were no illiterate people in Themyscira. All Amazons studied in the school on the island courses such as literature, warfare, grammar, maths, music and arts, etc. Among the classes taught in school, there was also one called Man's World, which was, simply put, just biased propaganda against men and the society outside of their island. But the Queen's words earlier clashed against the things that she had been taught to believe from the beginning. As she was walking absent-mindedly through the corridor heading towards her quarters, a tremor suddenly shook the entire palace. An earthquake. Phoebe muttered to herself in surprise. But then, another tremor followed. And another one. And another one. Her expression changed. No, it's not an earthquake. Although she was a non-combatant Amazon, she still took her duties very seriously. Her job was to attend to Her Majesty, the Queen of the Amazons. She broke into a run, rushing back towards the Queen's chambers to confirm her safety. But the rhythmical and constant tremors of the building made Phoebe lose her footing and fall on the floor with a thud. Enemy attack, she yelled at the top of her lungs. But her screams were not necessary to alert the others because all the guards stationed at the palace that night flooded the corridors, armed to the teeth. The repeated tremors made the Amazons on duty quickly realize that it was clearly not an earthquake and that it was coming from somewhere inside the palace, not from outside. Following the tremors, over 30 Amazons wielding swords, shields, and spears arrived in front of the princess's chambers. To their surprise, however, there was another female warrior stationed by the door. By the looks of it, she was struggling to maintain her composure and keep her spear and shield straight. She was subtly rubbing her thighs against each other and it could be seen even despite the helmet on her head that her face was flushed. Sister, are you all right? What's happening beyond that door? The Amazon guarding the princess's chamber was spared from answering that question when a wanton moan came from the room and another tremor shook the entire building. One of the more simple-minded Amazons asked naively, "Why is the princess crying? Move aside, sister, we have to save her. Is that man inside? Is he hurting her?" But the female warrior guarding the door blocked her way. "You're not allowed to enter. Why? Are you perhaps in cohorts with that man? This treachery won't go unpunished." The naive Amazon started yelling self-righteously, but one of her friends pulled her back before things escalated any further. "Hey, Penelope, let go, what's the big idea?" The naive Amazon tried to break free. Another erotic moan came from the other side of the door and a tremor made the palace shake again. By now, most of the Amazons gathered there were starting to feel hot under the collar. For anyone with a modicum of common sense, it was impossible to not understand what was actually going on at that moment inside the dear princess's chamber. "Since you don't get it, I'll spell it for you. The princess is having intercourse," the Amazon guarding the chamber spat out, blushing furiously. "Intercourse," the naive female said dumbly. "They're fucking each other's brains out like animals in heat. Is that clear enough for you? Great Hera, why are you so stupid?" The Amazon stationed in front of the door screamed, unable to cope with the embarrassing situation anymore. Asterism. "Please keep my daughter safe. She is my little sun and stars," Hippolyta said, looking at Diana tenderly. But Wonder Woman could not meet her eyes. Ever since she woke up that day, it was like she was suffering from a constant fever. How could I have acted in such a manner? Her cheeks were burning whenever her mind went to the debauchery from the night before. She was so ashamed that she had not met with any of her Amazon sisters the entire morning. It was only now, when they were preparing to open the gates of Tartarus, that she finally left her chambers to speak with her mother one last time. "Don't worry, mother. Diana is strong enough to take care of herself. I'm only tagging along for fun. And, of course, to make sure nothing unexpected happens." Hippolyta's left eye started twitching for some reason, maybe because he was already calling her mother, as if he was already her son-in-law. Or maybe because he was treating a perilous journey to kill the god of the underworld, in his own world, as if it was some recreational trip. "I've never seen someone as thick-skinned as you," Hippolyta said in exasperation. A glance at her daughter, however, let her know that despite how she was steaming in shame, Diana was beaming from happiness. "Do not underestimate the dangers of Tartarus. Hades is the brother of Zeus, the king of Olympus. And you will be intruding into his domain," she exhorted. "I know you are very powerful, probably almost as powerful as a god. You are the very reason why I was forced to reveal the truth to Diana about her true origins. However, magic works in mysterious ways. True gods are gods for a reason." Despite his cheeky behavior, Naruto nodded obediently this time. "I won't let my guard down, mother. I promise." Hippolyta smiled at him. Then, she opened her arms and looked at her daughter. The princess listened to her non-verbal plea and came to her. Mother and daughter embraced each other dearly. Showing a measure of tact that would have never been seen at him when he was a kid back in the elemental nations, Naruto left the throne room, giving Diana and Hippolyta a moment of privacy. The squad of Amazons stationed in the halls of the palace were watching him intently, not missing any of his movements. But strangely enough, most of them were avoiding making eye contact with him. Even with how thick-skinned he was, Naruto could not help scratching his cheek in slight embarrassment. It's all because of her. That perverted princess. It was not hard for him to guess why. To say that Wonder Woman had been a bit too vocal during their activities last night would be an understatement. But in spite of his thoughts, he smiled fondly and chuckled. He had definitely not expected Wonder Woman to have such a wild and perverted side to her. But he was not complaining. Not in the least. Asterism. The entrance to Tartarus was located below Paradise Island, in an underground space holding the ruins of an ancient city. The only intact structure in the ruined city was what looked like the grandiose entrance of a temple built in a cliff. It was the gates of Tartarus. A stone key was inserted into a special lock and, following that, the enormous gates of Tartarus were opened with a loud grating sound. All that could be seen through the entrance was just a rock bridge traversing a sea of fire. Hippolyta embraced Diana one more time. Go. May Goddess Athena give you strength. When they parted, Naruto's voice came from behind Diana. Don't I get a hug too? The Amazons standing by the queen's side immediately brandished their spear at him threateningly. Step away from the queen. They yelled. Naruto raised his hands and stepped back. Sheesh, you women need to lighten up a little. Hippolyta found herself smiling. She was beginning to see why her daughter liked him. She and the rest of the Amazons were very tense and somber, looking almost as if they were at a funeral, but he was relaxed and even cracked jokes at a time like that. His easygoing and likable personality managed to get under one's skin very quickly. You will get your hug after you bring my daughter back safely, Hippolyta said. Naruto perked up and grinned. It's a promise then. Don't you dare go back on your word. Diana pulled one of his hands almost petulantly. Are you trying to woo my mother now? Let's go already. He burst into laughter. Okay, let's go. With that, he stopped joking around and headed towards the gates. A nine-tailed fox cub was already waiting for them in front of the gates, flicking his fluffy tails restlessly. His vertical pupils were pinned on the bridge traversing the sea of fire. Naruto grabbed Kyuubi by the scruff of his neck and placed him on his shoulder. Then, man, woman, and fox stepped through the gates, into Tartarus. The Amazons were quick to push the gates after them, but right before they were completely closed, a peculiar snake slithered its way through. Asterism. As the three of them walked across the bridge, Naruto and Kyuubi looked around curiously. So this is what the afterlife looks like, Naruto said. Not exactly, Diana replied. This is just Tartarus, the hellish part of the afterlife. This is where the sinners and those who have angered the gods of Olympus go. The souls of people who have led a virtuous life are sent to Elysium, to paradise. So can you find here jerks like that dude that started World War II on Earth? He asked. Wonder Woman shook her head. You mean Hitler? He came from a Christian background. He's most likely in Christian's version of hell. Different pantheons don't intrude in each other's domain. I wonder where did the Saiyan's souls go after I killed them, Kyuubi said from atop Naruto's shoulder. Diana shrugged. I have no idea. I don't know what gods they believe in. What about atheists? Naruto asked another question. How is the afterlife of those who don't believe in the existence of gods? I've never asked myself that, to be honest. It's an interesting question. I'd like to know that too. Diana said. As they chatted about this and that, the end of the bridge came in sight. However, when they reached the head of the bridge, an enormous creature's threatening growl greeted them. The relaxing mood from before dissipated and the princess unsheathed her sword and grabbed her shield. This is Cerberus, the three-headed dog of Hades, one of the guardians of Tartarus. Diana said tensely. Naruto looked in interest at the monster ahead of them. It was an over 20-foot-tall creature weighing several tons. Its skin was pitch black and rock-like formations grew out from its body like protective armor. But the most noticeable thing about the creature was its three very ugly and large dog heads. The creature's gaping maws revealed several rows of jagged teeth that looked like daggers, and the drool falling from its mouths was making sizzling sounds when it fell on the ground, melting it. Right as Wonder Woman was bracing herself for a vicious fight against the huge three-headed monster, the tiny fox cub jumped off Naruto's shoulder. Then, an enormous silhouette appeared. It made the already large Cerberus appear like a small pup in comparison. The monster's 3 pairs of eyes widened in fear as it took in the sight of a creature even more monstrous than itself. Hundreds of feet tall, crimson red fur and 9 enormous tails that stirred powerful gales with simple flicks. Cerberus' ears fell flat on its head and its spiky tail was tucked between its legs. When a demonic growl came from the enormous behemoth, the 3-headed monster let itself fall flat on its belly and started whimpering submissively. A dark chuckle came from the demonic 9-tailed fox. You're not just a stupid mongrel, after all, are you? At least you do know who's the boss. QB's voice rumbled, making the Cerberus whimper even more pitifully. Listen here, mutt. Do you want to live? The dog's 3 heads nodded fervently at his question. If you want to live, you're going to be my bitch. Any problems with that? The fox's demonic voice rang. Cerberus shook its 3 heads humbly and prostrated itself in front of the god-like being towering above it. Ha ha ha. Very good. Now, stand on 2 feet and bow to me. The 3-headed dog gave its all to stand on 2 feet and struggled to maintain its balance as it bowed. Now sit. The guardian of Tartarus did as told and sat down. Roll. Cerberus rolled obediently. It even let its tongue hang out of its mouth and attempted to smile as if it was very happy to follow any order. The enormous fox's laughter boomed in satisfaction. Ha ha ha. This is so fun. Naruto, look, I got myself a new toy. Naruto was laughing out loud too at the Bijuu's antics. Wonder Woman was looking at the surreal scene in front of her with an incredulous face. She and the rest of the Amazons had been told many stories about the gods and various creatures that had submitted to them. Cerberus was a famous creature in their legends, one said to be a fiercely loyal and vicious servant of the god of the underworld, Hades. Yet he was reduced to this. Diana thought. She put a hand on her forehead. Just then, QB grabbed a large piece of rock from the ground and threw it. Cerberus burst into a sprint, giving its all to catch the rock. Then, it came back to QB, wagging its tail. Good boy. QB chortled. He took the rock from Cerberus' middle mouth and then threw it again. Just like before, the 3-headed dog burst into a mad dash to catch the rock, as if its life depended on it. Single-mindedly chasing the rock with everything it had, Cerberus tunnel-visioned on the piece of rock, losing track of anything else in its surroundings. Its jump was almost majestic when it launched itself from the ground and caught the rock in midair. Splash! Dark laughter reverberated in the abyss. QB started beating the ground with his fists, laughing his ass off. Wahaha! What a stupid dog! Ahaha! So focused the 3-headed dog had been on catching the rock that it had not noticed that QB had thrown the rock towards the sea of fire to their side. It jumped off the bridge, into the chasm, into the lava below. The Cerberus wailed in agony and struggled in despair to escape. But its death cries did not last for long. A few moments later, its howls ceased. The 3-headed monster disappeared below the boiling surface of the sea of fire. Only the Bijuu's cruel laughter could still be heard. Damn, Kurama, you're sick. You didn't have to do him dirty like that. Naruto said. Nonetheless, he had lived with the fox for over a century. He had long gotten used to QB's twisted personality. Wonder Woman appeared to be disturbed by what had happened. She had nothing against someone killing their enemies when necessary, but the fox's cruelty startled her. She had gotten so used to seeing the cute and fluffy fox cub that purred under her caresses that she had forgotten that the fox was a being capable of destroying planets, to say nothing about toying with a monster to its death. Numbering in the thousands, humanoid, with pitch-black skin, faces and wings like those of a bat, and with vicious claws on each of their forelimbs, it was a horde of lesser demons. Souls of the damned which, after millennia of torture and punishment, had become insane and turned into bloodthirsty demons. A massive crimson fox with 9 equally enormous tails was wreaking havoc in the demon horde's ranks. Each tail would reduce the dozens of demons to a bloody paste with every sweep. Though they had become insane, it was not as though they no longer had any intelligence left. Seeing their kin being obliterated so easily, the horde gave the behemoth a wide berth. From a distance, hundreds of them opened their maws and hundreds of fire bolts were shot at the Bayou. Using fire against me. Imbeciles. QB roared with laughter. His enormous mouth opened and a massive torrent of fire covered the entire plateau. Nearly 500 demons were annihilated with a single attack. Not even ash was left behind them. Flames hotter than the sun erased them from existence. As they were souls and this was Tartarus, they would eventually be regenerated to suffer more torture, but that was not going to happen in the immediate future. Naruto and Wonder Woman were not watching idly either. He went through a short sequence of hand seals and the air distorted as a ball of pressurized wind was shot from his mouth. Wind release, vacuum sphere. As the ball of wind traveled through the air, its size continued to increase to the point where it was as large as a car. Then, it exploded. All demons in a 50 feet radius from the center of the explosion were reduced to mincemeat. Show off, Wonder Woman said, almost pouting. One-on-one, she had been able to fight on equal grounds even against an enraged Kryptonian. Her strength was not questionable. However, she did not have many means of causing mass destruction, area of effect spells or techniques. From the corner of her eyes, she was looking in slight envy at how easily Naruto dispatched tens of demons with any random attack. In contrast, with her god-slaying sword in her right hand and her golden lasso in her left, she could only kill 2 to 3 of them at a time. I'm not showing off. I'm actually being lazy, he said. His hands went through another short sequence of hand seals and dozens of feet-long rock spikes burst from the ground, impaling the unsuspecting demons charging at him. If I was to get serious, I'd make a few hundred clones and blast them all with a barrage of Rasengan. Or go into my chakra mode and nuke them all with a Bayudama. As he was speaking, his hands stayed busy, continuing to form hand seals and casting various wind, lightning, and earth techniques. He stood in one place leisurely as wind blades, lightning bolts and earth spikes caused a massacre amidst the demons' ranks. Wonder Woman flicked the blood off her sword and sheathed it. She felt as if she was riding a bus. Kyuubi was killing hundreds of demons per minute without breaking a sweat, and Naruto was lazily killing dozens at a time too. With or without her number of kills, it was pretty much the same. Instead of wasting her energy fruitlessly, she came next to Naruto to chat with him. I used to be terrified at the thought of Tartarus before, she thought, inwardly amused. While most people on Earth did not care or believe that hell existed, the Amazons had solid proof it existed. After all, they were guarding its very gates. Having the certainty that there was an inescapable place of eternal suffering and damnation in the afterlife was enough to instill fear into anyone's heart. To think that one day I would come to Tartarus, not as a departed spirit but to kill Hades, the god of underworld. She was marveling at how much her situation changed ever since Naruto and Kyuubi came into her life. Giving up already? Naruto asked with a chuckle when he saw her coming by his side. You're killing everything alone. Especially Kurama, look at him. Diana said. The two of them took a look at Kyuubi, who seemed like he was in the 9th heaven as he killed demons wantonly. Every time he killed a few hundreds of demons at once, he would burst into laughter. He was filled with glee. I tend to forget how dangerous he is when all he does is to purr and cuddle in my lap, she remarked. But the way he delights in slaughter, and the way he killed Cerberus a while ago. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. He's always been like that. Back in our homeworld, he wreaked havoc for nearly 1,000 years. Before 2 incredibly powerful shinobi came into the world, the reincarnations of the 2 sons of the god of shinobi, nobody had been able to subdue him. The 9-tailed demon fox was considered the embodiment of rage, a force of nature bent on destruction. His hands became covered in lightning, and a beast of lightning similar to a wolf was launched forth. It lunged at the closest demon and passed through it like a ghost, leaving only a charred corpse in its wake. It zapped through a group of demons at a speed faster than the naked eye could follow, making them all collapse at the same time. The beast of lightning reduced in size every time it passed through a demon's body, but it managed to kill over 20 of them by the time it finally dissipated completely. He's mellowed down a lot ever since we became friends. Nowadays he's not attacking any humans or innocent living beings indiscriminately. But there's nothing holding back his explosive temper or his appetite for destruction when it comes to his enemies. And I have nothing against that. Being kind to your enemy is cruelty towards yourself. It's not something that I could understand back in my homeworld when I was a naive kid, but a century of roaming the universe hammered that concept into me. This is a dog-eat-dog world. Naruto and Diana kept chatting in a relaxed manner while he and Kyuubi were easily killing the waves of demons coming at them. However, after a while, his expression started to change. This isn't good. What's wrong? She asked. I didn't notice it at first, but my chakra isn't regenerating like always. I can't sense any natural energy either. These demons are weak but they're endless. Tartarus has hundreds of millions if not billions of souls imprisoned in it. You're going to run out of chakra long before the demons exhaust their numbers. Diana said, realizing the meaning of his words. Naruto nodded and then yelled. Kurama, my chakra isn't regenerating. I can't absorb natural energy either. We have to pull back. Though Kyuubi had immersed himself in the pleasure of violently killing the demons, he had never lost his sense of reason. He understood immediately that the situation was not favorable to them at all. Due to how late Naruto unsealed him from his body, he had been in his mid-40s, a part of the Bayou was left behind forever. In his new body, the fox could no longer regenerate chakra by himself. In the past, Kyuubi had acted like a chakra battery for Naruto, but nowadays the roles were reversed. Nowadays, it was Naruto who was acting as the battery to offer the fox a level of power comparable to the 10-tailed beast of their homeworld, giving him the godlike strength that allowed him to even destroy a planet. However, without Naruto to resupply him with energy, his personal reserves of chakra were limited. He could not afford to waste his chakra on dealing with the small fry anymore. A powerful roar roused a gale of wind that cleared the entire battlefield for half a mile in a fan shape in front of the fox. The Bijuu's mere roar was enough to flatten entire forests, to say nothing of the horde of lesser demons. Nonetheless, peace only lasted for a few moments. As if they knew not the meaning of fear, another wave of demons surged towards them like the tidal waves of the sea. Kyuubi's gigantic silhouette abruptly shrunk until he became only a tiny fox cub, and he ran towards Naruto and Wonder Woman, hopping on his favorite spot on his shoulder. If you can't regenerate your chakra, we can't waste any time anymore. Any moment is precious. We have to find that god and kill it as fast as possible. Kyuubi said. Naturally, Naruto agreed with him. But how are we going to find him? I can't enter Sage mode here. My negative emotion sensing is of no use either. This place is an ocean of negative emotions, the fox said. I can use my lasso of truth to mind control someone and lead us to Hades' hideout. But we need to find an intelligent being first. Wonder Woman said and took flight. Air currents swirled around Naruto's body and he followed her, flying in the air. However, the fact that they were flying did not mean they were safe from the horde of demons below. If that had been the case, they would have not chosen to fight against them on the ground before. The thousands of demons below spread their wings and pursued them while letting out chilling shrieks. Naruto, Kurama, cover your ears, Wonder Woman said, and the two of them did not question her orders. The Amazon princess suddenly slammed her forearms against each other, particularly her two bracelets of submission. It was like the air was ruptured. A sonic boom exploded and the shockwave cleared the dark sky around her group for almost half a mile. The demons dropped from the sky on the rocky and ashy ground below like flies, wailing and screeching in agony as their eardrums burst up and even some of their internal organs exploded because of the sound wave. Holy crap, Naruto muttered, having gotten a feeling of vertigo himself even after covering his ears and despite his superhuman body. He became dizzy for a brief moment. I got you, Wonder Woman said and grabbed him from behind, under his armpits. Sorry, it was the only way to quickly get rid of them, she said apologetically. She would have not used that move if it had not been for how urgent the situation was, because it was not wise to use a technique that harmed her allies. The thousands of demons below learned their lesson and did not attempt to fly again after them. However, that still did not mean that the three of them were safe. The demons opened their jaws at the same time and the dark sky of Tartarus was lighted up like New Year's night sky on Earth by fireworks. When thousands of fireballs were launched in the sky, Diana's expression changed greatly at the sight of them. With Naruto in her arms and with Kyuubi on his shoulder, the princess left sonic booms in her wake as she broke the sound barrier with her flight, avoiding most of the fireballs. However, there were just too many, there were thousands of them. Content with being carried by the Amazon, he could not fly that fast regardless. Naruto's hands formed a dog seal. Then, an absurd amount of water burst from his mouth. The princess herself was shocked when he spat out so much water that it looked as if the dam of a reservoir was broken. It was water release, exploding water colliding wave. Like the violent waves of a furious river, the water he released doused the thousands of fireballs coming from below and swept clean the entire plateau. Momentarily, Wonder Woman looked at the scenery of destruction below in amazement. If you could do that, why didn't you do it from the start? Despite the temporary victory, Naruto did not show any signs of joy. Using a water technique of this magnitude in a place like this, amidst lava and burning flames, in hell. I wasted way too much chakra. In a situation where he could not easily recover his chakra, he would not use such a technique of mass destruction unless it was absolutely necessary. He did not know what other trials and enemies lay ahead of them. He had to ration his chakra usage wisely. The scenery below looked macabre. The entire ground had been covered by ashy brown water, transforming it into a murky lake with thousands of corpses floating on its surface. Noticing the countless demons in the distance flying towards them, Wonder Woman flew away at a high speed with Naruto in her arms. Asterism. In a particular mountainside of Tartarus, the dark red sky was illuminated by an enormous wheel of fire. It was hundreds of feet in diameter and it was spinning slowly as it floated in the air. It was not a beautiful sight because bound to the enormous spinning wheel of fire was an equally enormous being. It looked like a normal human male dressed in rags if one was to disregard his size. Rhythmically, every 3 minutes, the flames coating the wheel of fire surged and a savage scream of agony burst from the titanic being's mouth. The hundreds of chains tying his limbs and torso to the wheel would become red and melt his flesh, and the flames themselves would char his body black. However, every time the spinning wheel completed a 360-degree spin, the giant's horrible wounds would magically heal. Then, the torture would commence again and his roars of agony would tear the sky again too. Suddenly, a tiny cuckoo bird fluttered its wings as it flew in the sky graciously. It was an abnormal sight. There were no birds or any other type of living animals in Tartarus. There were no living beings. There were only the souls of the dead, demons, and eternal suffering. The giant bound to the wheel struggled to contain his screams of pain when he noticed the seemingly strange cuckoo bird flying towards him. It was only for a moment though. His roars made the mountainside shake, and this time they weren't screams of pain but screams filled with anger, with rage. "You! What are you doing here?" The giant screamed and he started pulling at the chains binding him to the flaming wheel fiercely, making them dig into his flesh. "I'll kill you. I will rip you to shreds and feast on your blood when I'm out of here. You depraved bitch, I'll." But he choked on his words when the peak of one of the mountains nearby was broken off and slammed into his face. "You will show me respect when you speak to me, mongrel," a royal-sounding female voice came from the bird. The giant gnashed his teeth. Then, he screamed in pain again as the flames coating the wheel surged once more and burned him alive. "You came here to gloat. 3,000 years of being burned alive were not enough torture," he screamed. The cuckoo bird was suddenly obscured by mist and, with a flash of golden light, a woman appeared in its stead. She looked like royalty, like a queen. There was a golden circular crown on her head, she wore elegant robes with golden ornaments and a lotus-tipped scepter was in her hand, a symbol of purity. "I do think 3,000 years were enough. Even too much. However, I had no say in your sentence. Do not lie to my face, cow," he shouted, gnashing his teeth to resist the pain from having his body incinerated again by the flaming wheel's surging fire. "You are the one who led me on. You conspired with Zeus against me." The woman scoffed. "A casual smile was enough for you to become infatuated with me. How laughable. If nothing else, I thought that 3,000 years in the pit of Tartarus would cure your foolishness, but from the looks of it, I was hoping for too much." The queen-like woman tucked a stray strand of her curly brown hair behind her ear and said, "Enough with the chit-chat. I have a proposition for you. Do me a favor and I'd rather die than do anything for you." The giant screamed in rage. "You are dead already," the woman pointed out in amusement. "Well, if you would rather spend the next few millennia in the same fashion, being burned by the heavenly wheel's fire, instead of roaming free, suit yourself." As she said that, the woman turned around, seemingly about to leave. "Wait," the Titanic man's voice rumbled. "You have the power to release me from this hell." The woman sneered at him as if that question was an insult to her dignity. "What do you think? Does the Queen of Olympus have the power to release you?" Another series of screams came from the giant as the spinning wheel of fire burned him alive again. "What do you want me to do in exchange for my freedom?" he said after he managed to recollect himself and suppress his pain. The self-proclaimed Queen of Olympus said coldly, "I need you to kill somebody. Goddammit, they keep following us." Naruto cussed when saw the thousands of demons still in hot pursuit after them. His hands formed a simple bird seal, but the technique he cast was not trivial. A vortex of pressurized air was shot from his mouth, one that kept increasing in size the longer it traveled through the air until a full-fledged tornado came into existence. Then, his hands made a tiger seal and a serpentine dragon of fire was cast at the tornado. The cataclysmic explosion that followed engulfed thousands of demons in an instant. The aftershocks carried so much heat that the ground and even rocks started to melt for half a mile around the now flaming tornado. Wonder Woman maintained her flying speed, heading towards a particular spot in the distance where she could see a myriad of chains covering the sky. The wails and shrieks coming from that place let her know that the souls of the dead were being tortured over there. She was aiming to find an intelligent being and interrogate it with her lasso. "How is your chakra?" she asked, a bit worried. "It's not like I suddenly became an invalid," he answered with a laugh. "Even as a kid, my chakra reserves were huge, let alone now. I can probably cast another 50 or more techniques of widespread destruction like the one from before. But I have to be cautious because I don't know how powerful Hades is. He is a god after all, and we don't know what other servants and creatures he has around him either. It would be really stupid if I gassed myself out and then tried to fight against a god with an empty tank." "What's stopping your chakra regeneration anyway?" Kyubi asked from his seat on his shoulder. "You know that chakra is the result of physical energy combined with spiritual energy. We've entered the realm of the dead, we are in hell. My spirit is affected by the energy of death in this place because I'm feeling the beginning of a kind of mental tiredness. It's not bad enough to affect my concentration, but I guess it's just enough to hinder my chakra regeneration. Thank the void it doesn't drain me or anything like that." It did not take long for them to reach the destination. But when they finally arrived, even Naruto and Kyubi, who had seen all kinds of horrors during their many adventures, had yet to see something as terrible as the sight in front of their eyes. "Great Athena," Wonder Woman whispered, her face pale. As far as their eyes could see, countless people were hanging in midair. Chains that seemed to sprout from the very sky and from the ground below were tying their hands, legs, and neck, forcing them with their limbs spread wide. There were so many that they could not be counted. However, an even greater number of demonic eagles were flying around them, their sharp talons and the curved beaks tearing into the flesh of the captives. Screams of pain and despair came from the souls as their eyes were being gouged out or as entire chunks of their body were being ripped off by the eternally hungry demons. They were being eaten, alive, devoured. The souls that still had eyes to see noticed the three newcomers' arrival. "Save me. Help. No more torture. Please, save us." Thousands of people were pleading, crying, screaming. It was despair like the three of them had never witnessed in their lives before. Her eyes wet with unshed tears, Diana unsheathed her sword and lunged at the captives, snapping the chains hanging them in the air. Dissatisfied and angry calls came from the demonic birds, but none of them dared to attack her. The Amazon had already rescued about 5 of them when Naruto caught her from her arm and stopped her. "Diana, come back to your senses. Can't you see their torment?" she said, and tried to break free from his grasp, but he embraced her forcefully to his chest. From atop Naruto's shoulder, Kyubi said coldly, "You told us that virtuous people were sent to Elysium. This is Tartarus. Good people don't get sent to hell, do they?" At the fox's words, Wonder Woman stopped resisting. For a moment there, overwhelmed by her compassion and pity for the tortured souls, she forgot just what kind of people had been sent to Tartarus after dying. Furthermore, she realized that for someone to be subjected to such horrifying torture, their sins had not been light. But not all people that were sent to Tartarus were guilty of something. She closed her eyes. As an Amazon, she knew very well how whimsical and vengeful some of the Olympian gods were. Goddess Athena had been one of the most respected and widely worshipped gods in the world back in ancient times for her wisdom, kindness, and support to humankind. However, even she had had her moments of cruelty against those who crossed her, to speak nothing of other gods. Most other gods were much, much worse. Even if one was a virtuous person, they could still end up in Tartarus if they offended the gods. Naruto sighed and let go of her. "Let me borrow your lasso for a moment," he said, and she made no move to stop him from taking the lasso hanging at her waist. Anyone could use the lasso of truth, it was not charmed only for Wonder Woman. He went to one of the souls that the princess had freed from the chains and wrapped the lasso around their torso. The lasso of Hestia compels you to tell the truth. What is your name? The bound soul had been tortured to the point where it was impossible to recognize whether it was a man or a woman. But when the lasso started to glow with a golden light, the soul was forced to speak. Felix Cornelius, for what sin were you sent to Tartarus? Naruto asked. He was not curious himself, he was doing it to put Wonder Woman's mind at peace, not really knowing what she was actually thinking about at that moment. I was a pirate. I pillaged, killed, and raped people my entire life. Naruto did not ask any additional questions regarding his life. Instead, he asked about what he was interested in. Do you know where Hades lives? Yes, I do, the soul replied robotically. Good. Lead the way there. Under the compulsion of the lasso, the soul was forced to obey his commands. Asterism. Although she had been greatly disturbed initially, Wonder Woman soon recollected herself. She understood it was impossible for her to do anything for the ones trapped in there. Most of the ones that had been sent to Tartarus had been terrible people in their lives. She had no way of searching for the innocent ones among millions of other evil souls. Even though she was telling herself that and tried to think rationally, it was difficult for her to find closure. The lightheartedness from before could not be seen on her face anymore. After passing through the forest of chained people hanging in the sky, the horde of lesser demons from before no longer pursued them. It appeared as if there was an invisible boundary that they were unable to cross. They were finally given a moment of respite. For a while, Naruto, Kyuubi, and Diana flew in silence. Regardless, following the directions of the lasso-controlled soul, their mood only continued to become more somber and darker as they passed by many more torment zones. There were courtyards where souls with presumably lesser sins were only being whipped or beaten up, but there were also other zones where people were being slowly submerged into smoldering pits of lava or were being skinned, alive, by demonic butchers. Cries of agony, screams, curses of despair, and the cruel laughter of demons pierced the pitch-black sky. It was hell. It was Tartarus. Suddenly, a scream different than that of the tortured souls reached their ears, and a piece of rock the size of a millstone barely missed them, going past them with a loud whooshing sound. Turning towards the direction from where the piece of rock had been thrown, the silhouette of a giant entered their line of sight. A man taller than a 10-story building was charging towards them, his large feet turning both demons and the tortured souls it stepped on into a bloody paste, squashing them like bugs. Before Naruto could say anything, Wonder Woman lunged at the giant and punched him in his massive head with all her strength. Compared to him, she appeared no different than a mosquito. However, when her punch impacted his face, the giant stumbled back several steps, only regaining his balance by chance, with difficulty. So you are the newest offspring of that Zeus bastard. Not bad. The giant's voice rumbled as he rubbed at his chin. One punch and it had already made his jaw sore. Who are you? Wonder Woman asked. Did Hades send you to kill me? You don't recognize family when you see it. You bruise my feelings. I am one of your many brothers, Ixion, the king of Lapiths, the giant said mockingly. Zeus is my father too. The mighty king of gods, Ixion said and spat on the ground in distaste. More like a rabid dog in heat. Wonder Woman frowned at the giant. Who sent you after me? She asked. Maybe it was because he had not spoken to someone for thousands of years, but Ixion seemed to be very talkative. Fret not, since we are family and all that, I can at least show you this little bit of courtesy and tell you who sent me to kill you. Mind you, it is not personal. Hera sent me your life, in exchange for my freedom. Hearing that, the princess was done listening. When he saw her lunging at him, Ixion's large palm swung at her, in an attempt to swat her away like a fly, but her agility was too much for him to keep up with. Being kind to your enemy is cruelty towards yourself, she thought, repeating in her mind the words that she heard Naruto saying a while ago. She was not going to hold back. Unsheathing her god-slaying sword, she stabbed it into the giant's heel tendon. A savage roar of pain came from him and his enormous body wobbled back as he lost his balance, unable to stand properly on just one leg. His massive fist smashed into the ground like meteorites as he tried to squash her to death, but she easily dodged his clumsy and slow strikes. She buried her sword up to the hilt into the heel tendon of the giant's other leg too. With his slashed tendons and feet unable to carry his enormous weight anymore, Ixion fell on his knees, rupturing the ground when he crashed. While screaming in pain, the giant threw his fists in rage, but his wild punches did nothing except for stirring the air. Easily evading all of his strikes, Wonder Woman flew up to his head and kicked him in the face with all the strength she was capable of. It was so formidable that the over 60-foot tall giant was actually lifted off the ground and flung back through the air like a dead dog. Sensing his impending doom, Ixion abandoned his previous haughtiness and cried out, begging for mercy. Wait, don't kill me. However, it was too late. The moment he finished his words, the Amazon's sword pierced his throat. Compared to his huge size, her sword was no bigger than a toothpick. Nevertheless, when that toothpick slashed at his neck arteries, a large gaping wound was opened. No, not again. Not the wheel. Nike, he screamed while choking on his own blood. Upon death, since he was still in Tartarus, the judges of the underworld were going to send him back to be tortured by the flaming wheel. As Ixion temporarily died, a thought came to the front of his mind. That harlot, she knew I wouldn't stand a chance. She sent me to my death. Asterism. The moment that Ixion breathed his last, Hera made a displeased sound. He could not buy me even 1 hour. That useless oaf. It had been within her expectations that Ixion would lose. Hera was not that kind-hearted as to actually offer freedom to someone who tried to rape her even after several millennia of torture. From the very beginning, the giant had been sent as cannon fodder to buy her some time. Though he had played his part poorly, Hera was not anxious. The reason for that was that she had already arrived at her destination. Ahead of her was a mountain range that even Hades, the god of the underworld, could not control. It was a territory occupied by one of the most terrible beings known to both men and gods alike. After she stepped into that mountain range, several grotesque silhouettes appeared in front of her, barring her way. Beings that looked like out of someone's nightmares, creatures with multiple heads and body parts coming from different animals. They were chimeras, a myriad of them. A look of distaste flashed in Hera's eyes when she looked at the monsters growling at her threateningly. But she did not make a scene. Keeping her face neutral, she said in a pompous tone, "Send word to your master and inform him that the Queen of Olympus, Hera, wants to speak to him." When the chimeras did not immediately heed her words, she snapped, "Do not keep me waiting, beasts. Move." The group of monsters became restless at her words and started growling menacingly. However, they did not rashly make a move to attack her. They were smart enough to understand the difference between them and a goddess. One of them, a creature resembling a jackal for the most part, flapped its 4 hawk wings and flew away, heading towards their master to inform him in regards to the intruder. Neither Hera nor the group of monsters had noticed the inconspicuous black snake hiding between the roots of one of the numerous dead trees around them. Asterism. A blackish-red sky, pitch-black heavy clouds and perpetual darkness. There was no day, there was no sun, there was no moon, and there were no stars either in Tartarus. The only source of light in the eternal darkness was coming from the countless pits of fire and the ever-flowing rivers of lava melting their way through the land. Because of that, everything that could be seen was tainted by shades of orange and red. 4 silhouettes were flying in the air, above the rivers of lava and the masses of souls that were being tortured by demons below. They were not paying attention to what was happening on the ground. Instead, their eyes were pinned up, towards the sky. A several miles long island was floating in the sky, its entire surface covered by a black citadel. "We're finally here," Naruto said. The golden lasso in his hands began increasing in length until the feet of the soul tied up at the end of it touched the ground. Then, the lasso untied itself and shrank back in size. "Go. You're free to go," he told the soul. "Go where?" "No matter where he goes, this is Tartarus," Wonder Woman thought. She was trying to tell herself that the soul was a pirate that had killed and pillaged countless innocents when he was alive and he deserved his fate. However, seeing the torture and suffering in Tartarus had shaken her to the core. She could not help recalling the lyrics of a song she had heard on the radio when she had just come to the man's world for the first time. "Imagine there's no heaven, it's easy if you try, no hell below us, above us only sky." At that time, still unaware of what Zeus had done to her mother and how she had come out to be, the princess's reaction was to get angry and shun in her mind the singer as blasphemous. However, in the present, disillusioned with the gods and having lost her blind faith in them, her thoughts were vastly different. Most of the gods she used to worship were even worse than average humans. They killed their family, raped innocents, and dished out cruel punishments for the slightest affronts to their names. Maybe it was better if there was no heaven and no hell. Maybe it was better if gods never existed in the first place. But then she closed her eyes and tried to calm down her troubled mind. She understood that the shock of witnessing the horrors of hell for the first time was clouding her judgment. It is not entirely bad that a place like Tartarus exists. A simple death would be too easy of a punishment for a bastard like Zeus who raped my mother. When she thought of that, her previous feelings of pity for the tortured souls were replaced with rage towards the King of Gods. Noticing the tumult of dark emotions and the intensity of negative feelings coming from the Amazon, QB said, "You're not planning on fighting against a god with your mind clouded by anger, are you? Get a grip or stay behind. We don't need baggage to drag us down." "Oi, Kurama," Naruto rebuked him. "No, he's right," Diana admitted with a sigh. "I need to get my emotions under control or I might end up causing everyone problems." The shinobi, the Bayou, and the Amazon looked at the eerie floating island in silence for a while, everyone having their own thoughts. Kurama, in his tiny fox cub form, was wagging his 9 tails slowly, but the mere fact that the proud Bayou was behaving like that was betraying his excitement and restlessness. On the other side, Wonder Woman had a look of seriousness as she tried to settle her feelings and recollect herself. As for Naruto, he looked like he had something on his mind. It seemed as if he was not influenced too much by the wails of agony coming from the tortured souls around them or by the grim scenery. His mentality could not be shaken just by that. As far as he was concerned, the souls tormented in Tartarus deserved their fate. He did not feel a shred of pity or mercy for people who committed all kinds of atrocities when they were alive. They were just reaping what they sowed. There was something else occupying his thoughts. Eventually, he spoke. "What do you plan on doing after we kill Hades?" Diana was startled by that question. I haven't thought that far. Way too many things happened in the past 2 days. First, she had had a life and death battle against a bloodlusted Kryptonian. Then, she was forced to kill Maxwell Lord Ivy. Then, almost all her friends denounced her and washed their hands off of her. Then, Hermes delivered her the orders of Zeus to go to Tartarus. Then, she saw tens of thousands of people protesting against the Justice League and against her. After that, she went directly to Themyscira. Amidst all the tragedies that kept coming one after another, she was given a short moment of bliss when she finally became one with the person she loved. That said, so many things took place in such a short time that she had not had the chance to think about tomorrow, about the future. What if killing Hades is not the end? Naruto pressed on. "What do you mean by that?" she asked. "Who's to say that after you deliver them Hades' head they won't ask for something else?" It was like a bucket of ice-cold water was poured on her head. Your situation is not that different than a hostage situation. The Amazon's fate is in the gods' hands, and because of that, they can coerce you to do their bidding. We have no leverage against them. If things continue like this, we'll end up just playing in their palms. And what would you have me do? Wonder Woman snapped at him. "It's my mother. And my sisters. You want me to abandon them? Haven't they lived for like 5,000 years or more already? Life moves on," QB said uncaringly. "Kurama, shut up." Naruto and Diana both shouted at him in unison. Over the past few months, QB's affection extended from Naruto to encompass Diana as well, but that did not mean that he had suddenly started caring about the rest of the Amazons too, or any of the princess's friends. Naruto and Diana were the only beings he treasured. For all he cared, the rest could simply perish, it was no skin off his back. He was indifferent to their fate. The weak died, and the strong survived. Things were very simple in his mind. But his selfishness had bared its teeth again at the wrong time, making both of them snap at him. "I'm not saying you should abandon your family. Far from that. The day you hear me say something like this, you have my permission to beat me to an inch of my life. What I am saying is that we need to think of what comes next. We haven't had the chance to talk about it. But we need a plan, or you'll end up as nothing but the Olympian god's attack dog." The princess calmed down at his reasonable words. "Tell me more about your gods." Naruto began, but Diana cut him off with a glare. "They're not my gods." "Right, it was a poor choice of words on my part," he said, and raised his hands as if to say he meant no harm. Tell me more about the Olympian gods. Who exactly created the Amazons? Basically, I need to know who we can attack and who is untouchable. I need to get a better picture of the situation because I know next to nothing about them. In the meantime, Diana and Naruto, with Kyuubi sitting on his shoulder, stopped flying and landed in a deserted place with no demons or any other beings around. They could not just float in the air and talk, it was too conspicuous. Paying no regard to the ash covering the ground everywhere, Naruto just plopped himself down and leaned with his back against a boulder. He placed his right hand on his left wrist and a small bottle appeared with a cloud of smoke. Unscrewing the bottle cap, he shook the bottle lightly and dropped 2 to 3 pills into his palm. What's that? She asked. She was curious because she had never seen him take any pills of any kind until then. Vitamins. Vitamins? She asked incredulously, thinking he was poking fun at her. They're a complex of vitamins and other substances needed by the human body. There were times during my missions when I ended up away from any sort of civilization for days or weeks at a time and I rarely had the chance to cook. I had to be prepared. One of these pills is enough to feed my body enough nutrients to last me for an entire day. Want some? They were not as good as the pills from his homeworld that could directly replenish chakra, but they were still better than nothing. After she refused his offer with a soft shake of her head, he said, "Anyway, tell me about the Olympian gods and their relationship with the Amazons." Wonder Woman followed his example and sat down too, but she placed her shield on the ground before sitting on it. The Amazons worship 5 goddesses: Aphrodite, Athena, Demeter, Artemis, and Hestia. In fact, my mother named me Diana in honor of Artemis, who was also known to Romans as Diana. Then, she explained the roles of each goddess in the Amazons' culture and religion. Aphrodite is the one that came up with the idea of creating the Amazons. She is the goddess of love and beauty and she blessed the Amazons with her beauty. Naruto inwardly nodded at that. During his brief stay on Themyscira, he had not seen even one unattractive woman among them. If they went to the outside world, each one of them could probably pursue a career in modeling if they desired so. Goddess Hestia is the one who gifted our home, Themyscira. If there is one goddess in the entire pantheon that could be said to have no faults at all, it is her. Even now, I still respect her a lot. She is the goddess of home and family. He was listening to her words with genuine interest. Even Kyuubi was paying close attention. He was going to become a god soon and he wanted to learn more about it. Though they had seen much of the world and traveled the universe for centuries, they had not really had any significant encounters with the so-called gods. Demeter is the goddess of harvest and fertility. Themyscira has a small number of farmers, but the Amazons have never suffered from a lack of food due to her blessing. She also blessed the Amazons with superhuman physical strength and durability. Artemis is the goddess of the moon, wilderness, and the hunt. She blessed the fauna on Paradise Island and gifted the Amazons with a connection with nature and skill at hunting. She's also the reason why Kurama purrs like a cat when I scratch his back, she said, making Naruto chuckle and Kyuubi growl a little at her from his spot on his shoulder. As for Athena, she's the one that blessed the Amazons to have skill in battle. She gifted them her wisdom, education, and technology. Currently, she is the most important patron goddess of the Amazons. Naruto hummed in thought for a few seconds. The way I see it, Zeus and Hera have no direct dominion over the Amazons. Unless I'm missing something. Why can't we just kill them and be done with it? Wonder Woman let out an involuntary snort. Naruto was talking about killing Zeus as if he was some random street thug, not the strongest god in the world, as far as she was concerned. Things aren't as simple as that. Goddess Athena is Zeus' favorite daughter. Aphrodite and Artemis are his daughters too. Goddess Hestia is Zeus' sister. Demeter is Zeus' sister as well, and, on top of that, they even made a kid together. Even if we could kill Zeus, do you think they'd just sit and watch indifferently from the sidelines? Naruto looked at her in doubt. I don't know much about the Olympian gods, but, from the little you've told me so far, Zeus seems like a massive cunt. You're telling me everyone loves that guy? After how many people he killed or raped? I'm actually amazed nobody tried to kill him after so many years. Oh, the other gods did try. Several times in fact, but he's managed to stay on top every time. That's why nobody dares to go against his words. And that's why the other gods haven't tried to dethrone him anymore for thousands of years. Diana said. Despite her words, however, Naruto smiled. They're afraid of moving against him by themselves. But what if they saw an opportunity? Killing Hades should be enough proof that we're more than capable of killing any other god too. Won't they take the chance if they see one? They're just not willing to shoulder the responsibility of spearheading the rebellion because, in case of failure, the leader of the rebellion would definitely be punished the worst. But what if we take that spot for them? We'll take on that responsibility. Diana did not immediately dismiss his words. She had never seen Kyuubi at his full strength, but the entire universe was aware of his most recent feat, that of destroying the Saiyan's home planet. That was a level of power that she had not heard of even in the myths about the Olympian gods. Furthermore, there was Naruto in the equation too, and she, herself, was no slouch either. Maybe defeating Zeus and Hera isn't that far-fetched after all, she thought. Nevertheless, she could not just simply jump on the train without properly weighing everything about the situation in her mind. Maybe Naruto, Kurama, and I would be able to survive the war and escape if we failed. But what about my mother? What about my sisters? If we lost, they'd end up here, in Tartarus. Recalling the terrible tortures she had witnessed ever since she stepped into Tartarus, she shook her head. This was not a matter of courage. If it was only myself, I'm not afraid of taking on anyone. But this isn't just about me. This will implicate my mother and the rest of the Amazons too. Their livelihood is at stake. I won't gamble. I can't agree with starting a war against unless we are absolutely certain of our success. Naruto did not find her answers weird. His attitude would have been no different than hers if he had been in her shoes. He would also not willingly risk his loved ones' lives on a gamble. I can already destroy planets as I am now, what about after I become a god? Kyuubi said. There he goes again, Naruto muttered with a roll of his eyes. No one will be my match. I will be invincible. Ha 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 ha. Kyuubi said and laughed arrogantly. The fox's pride and arrogance were already sky high as they were. Naruto could only imagine the Bijuu's attitude after he really became a god. Regardless, now that they sat down and talked about their future course of action, things weren't looking as bleak as before. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.